Welcome back to another episode of The Good, The Crazy, The Ugly. However, it is October, so today's episode will be The Good, The Crazy, and The Halloween.
The Halloween. It is getting there. That's something I have to do this weekend. So I always I've got this big skeleton display with a graveyard that goes up in front of the house. And I wasn't going to do it this year. And I totally got guilt tripped by my kids because they're seniors and they're like, this is our last Halloween at home. I'm like, fuck. So that's what I'm doing this weekend. Just
Dude,
putting
that's
up my
awesome.
holiday decorations.
Well, I couldn't help but notice we're both wearing hoodies on the podcast. Again, it's October. The temperature has finally dropped.
Yeah, I was just outside walking the dogs and my hands are still cold. So I'm not used to it yet.
Yeah, I got my hot tea right here to keep my hands warm as well.
Yeah, cheers.
All right, let's start. As always, we're going to start with the good or the great, whichever you want to call it. These two I found were fucking awesome.
Yeah.
This first one by Zach Blevins, the spider, Biomech spider, coming out of like a cyber skull. Just kick ass. Good movement. I love the color. Nice and big. Looks like it goes down into that elbow ditch a little bit, that one of those legs.
Yeah, I really like the use of color, and even like I've got it pretty small on my screen, you can still tell what it is. Like the color contrasts enough that everything is clear. Like I can see it from a distance.
Yeah, that thing. Good use of I think it's a good mix of black and then color. And what a lot of people I don't know, if they're not in the industry, don't understand is because of it being on skin. If you want something to be super colorful, lots of times people will be like, well, I don't want any black. And I'm like, well, black helps the color pop. And then, of course, color helps the black pop. So this is a really good blend, especially because he's using multiple tones of pink almost exclusively in that skull, that could easily get lost. But there's just enough black in there that you know exactly what that is.
How long? So, like, it's good use of color. How long does a tattoo like that last in terms of staying vibrant? Like, it seems like that would be something that you would have to touch up after a couple years or maybe more. I don't know.
You know, well, it depends on how much sun exposure it's going to get. That looks like it's on the inside of the arm. That thing will probably really never need a touch up, especially if the tattoo applicator, meaning the tattooer and his skill set is good. It's going to last forever for the most part. I mean, sure, maybe the yellows and some of the pinks might start to fade a little bit, but overall, those, if you're a good tattooer, it really doesn't matter what color palette you're using. It's going to hold up great. And especially inside of the arm, never going to see sun.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I guess that would be a good place to put something like that.
Yeah, that's the arch nemesis. This next one I thought was fantastic, which is the classic. I mean, we're talking from the sailor days, 40s or 50s, classic panther crawling up the arm, but it's done, and people might have to zoom in a little bit. It's done in all Japanese brush stroke.
I was going to say, I don't see any lines. Like, it looks like everything is shading and fading.
Yeah. So the fact that he kind of took how you would, how a Japanese artisan with, you know, Irizumi ink and a brush on rice paper would design a panther. He executed it with a tattoo machine on a guy's arm. But the fact that it's also like a classic traditional tattoo done that way, I just think the juxtaposition of that style and that imagery threw it in the great category. This guy knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, that is a really, really cool tattoo.
And I like the fact that it's cool enough that somebody like you who's not in the industry, you still know what it is.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the key. Like, sure, the insiders know what's going on, but can the average person on the street still appreciate it as an awesome tattoo? And he pulled it off.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because like again, I don't know what I'm looking at, but like I wouldn't have pegged that it was a Japanese style tattoo. It just kind of looks like, it almost just the way that he did it. It's really interesting because it seems like it really lives like in the negative space too, like with the brush strokes. Like that's where my eye goes first is to the stuff that's not black.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really cool.
the crazy. I got two good ones.
That's hilarious.
Dude, Action Bronson, Bam Bam Baklava.
Right?
I mean, this is A, the fact that you got like a traditional portrait of Bam Bam Baklava is hilarious. The fact that they're doing the play on his YouTube cooking channel, fuck, that's delicious.
Hmm.
But that it's a pile of coke on his hand.
Right. Right. That's I mean, again, probably not appropriate for the workplace, but then again, who actually goes to the workplace anymore? Is that on a knee, an elbow,
I'm thinking that looks like
like
a leg. I
that
think
looks
the
like a
side of
leg
the
a
knee.
little bit,
Yeah.
yeah. So you could get away with it, but yeah, that's that's an interesting one.
Yeah, just genius. Like it's just funny. I again can't get. I love tattoos that make you laugh.
Yeah. I'm impressed with the way that the guy did the pile of coke on because you can tell what it is right away. Like it's pretty blatant. It's very expensive tattoo.
Yes, exactly. We've had this conversation so many times at work, which is what band do you think's logo has been tattooed the most? Misfits comes up, Insane Clown Posse comes up, Black Flag's a classic. Wu-Tang is always in the conversation. And here's yet another Wu-Tang done biomech style. Absolutely brilliant. Incorporated the yellows, went with like kind of that turquoise blue as the
Yeah.
contrast color, kept it simple. I think they nailed this Wu-Tang. It's just this is so unique. I love it.
It seems like it's really well placed too. Like it fits very well in the like with the shape of the appendage versus the shape of the tattoo. Like you can still fully read the Wu Tang, and yeah, I like the contrasting colors too.
Yeah, they did a great job and just a nice hat tip to Wu Tang. And yet again, there's another Wu Tang tattoo sitting out there. I'm beginning to think Wu Tang actually might be the band with their logo tattooed the most.
I mean, I'm still gonna argue that maybe it's the Grateful Dead. Like the amount of Steelies and Jerry Bears and everything else might have
They're
them have a close second.
dude, they're in the conversation. It's like
Yeah,
anytime I'm like, oh, it's all right, it's got to be Black Flag or it's got to
yeah.
be a Misfit Skull. It's like you could there's definitely a Mount Rushmore out there, and I would say Grateful Dead is probably on there.
Be an interesting survey. Like if somebody actually could figure out like how to figure that out, like in rank. Like here's the bands of because having a band tattoo means that you really like the band, right? So that's like a different type of fandom, I guess.
There's if Rolling Stone is listening,
Yeah.
there's an article you need to put a intern on.
Right. Right.
Have them do a 1 year poll and try to figure out ranking band logo tattoos.
Yep.
And because it's October, we're bypassing the ugly and we're going to two very classic Halloween style tattoos that were both done excellent.
Yeah.
We got Friday the 13th. Can't go wrong.
That seems like that's a popular like to reference Halloween movies in tattoos seems like you see Scream, you see Friday the 13th, you see or Night
Halloween
that's Nightmare on Elm
or
Street. That's
Nightmare on
yeah,
Elm Street.
yeah.
Yep. Sorry.
But you see Friday the 13th too. I think that was in the last episode. We had the Jason mask with the forest and whatnot.
Yep.
But movies seem to be a popular thing for Halloween tattoos.
Yeah. Yeah. I said Friday the 13th because I just watched
Right.
one this weekend.
Yeah, it's that time. Like they're all coming on TV now, and then you got to sit down and think like, what movies do I want to watch in October?
Oh, dude, we've already watched Halloween 1, Halloween 2. We watched Friday the 13th. We watched Rob Zombie's remake of Halloween.
Yeah,
We're running through the gamut, and it's October 3rd.
yeah.
So yeah, Freddy's Claw, Freddy's Glove, um, just done really good. Simple, done elegant, perfect. Lines are crisp, looks great. And then, kind of a classic, you'd almost find this in the get what you get machines, is the fake vampire teeth. I love the fact that they did this chrome,
Yeah.
black and gray, and just kicked it up a notch. Nothing crazy, didn't go nuts, but just, I'm going to do it black and gray chrome, actually using white. Um, they nailed this.
Yeah, it's not a super complex tattoo, but it's really cool looking. Like it definitely and it's not like incredibly scary either. Like it's got kind of a little bit of a funny angle to it.
Yeah, like that's why I almost feel like, did this come out of a get what you get
Yeah.
tattoo
Yeah.
machine? Like the dripping chrome. Yeah, they nailed it, because this is an easy one to kind of just phone in. You could
Yeah.
just, you see a lot of people, especially the younger generation, who just wants outlines of stuff. Could just simply be the outline of the teeth, and they'd be stoked about it. But
Hmm.
this person like put in some real effort to get the shading in for the chrome.
The little touches of white, like even the little dots on the teeth, like they're really well done. Like it looks like it's kind of like reflecting light at you. Like they did a nice job with it.
They did a really good job of executing chrome.
Yeah.
So yeah, they took their time on this. Again, easily a tattoo that could have been phoned in and still looked pretty decent. But this person obviously put a lot of time and effort into it. So kudos.
Cool. Yeah, we ought to, I'll once I do the show notes, I'll start looking up the actual artists and see if I can list their Instagram in the show notes and whatnot, because some of them probably have other tattoos that are worth looking at too. So,
Yeah. And that's why I always, when I crop the picture, try to keep the artist's name on there. So
yep,
people
cool.
are watching it, they can go back. But yeah, so look for that in the show notes. Other than that, on your YouTube channel, what new do we have coming? Because I know you've been doing a bunch of traveling.
Yeah, I just got back from Colorado. I don't know if so I've been to Denver a couple times, right? And I had to drive from Denver into the mountains for about 2.5 hours to Buena Vista, Colorado, or BV as the locals call it. I went to Billy Strings Renewal. It was fantastic. It was the first Billy Strings Renewal where Billy Strings did not play. Because so we're there, and I'm actually working on editing the videos today, but we're there Friday, and he gets out on stage and does his like audience interview, talk back, and they're asking him questions. Concert starts a few hours later. First thing that happens is a guy named Scotty Stoughton, who owns Bonfire Entertainment, comes out and says, "Yeah, Billy's on a plane back to Michigan because his wife Allie's water broke, and so he was going to be a dad that weekend. So he left his own festival, which is exactly what he should have done, right? Well, they ended up pulling together a hell of a great festival anyway." And then I guess the rumor has it, I don't know if it's actually true, but somehow he got lent Ringo Starr's jet to go back to Michigan. And again, I don't know if that's true, but that was like the rumor that was buzzing around the socials. And somebody actually I talked to yesterday on Facebook created a whole concert poster that has like Ringo's jet flying over the Colorado mountains, and it's renewal, but you can barely see the renewal. Like, but so then on top of all that, everybody still had a good time. Nobody was really pissed about it. But Bonfire then decided to refund everybody's tickets. So Billy and Bonfire came back, and they're literally issuing refunds for everybody's passes to the festival because he wasn't there. And we still got to see great music, right? Molly Tuttle took the stage with her brother Kyle and her band, and they kind of led everything. And at one point, there was probably 20, 30 bluegrass musicians up on the stage for a part of the concert. It was incredible. New band called Mountain Grass Unit that I really, really like. People ought to check out Mountain Grass Unit. There's something else. So,
Dude, that's awesome.
yeah, I got somebody. So I walk up and I'm standing there like getting out of some rain on it was Friday or Saturday, and there's a dude standing there. He was all tatted up too, but he has an Owsley shirt on. And I don't know if anybody knows Owsley, but he was like the sound guy for the Grateful Dead and made a bunch of acid and whatnot. And so I walk up and I go, "Nice Owsley shirt." And he turns around and he just hands me this, right? And it's this little like Buena Vista poker chip that's like one of those little tchotchke things, the collectibles that you get. And he just gives me this look and he hands me that. And all I could say was thank you. But yeah, so I got to meet a dude with an Owsley shirt and he gave me a cool Billy Strings Buena Vista poker chip. So
I
that was
wonder if you pop that open, if there's acid in it.
right. Well, after I grabbed it from him, I'm like, shit, should I have touched this?
Right? I know, dude.
Right? Like, did I just get dosed? But Yeah, it was a good time. I'm gonna get some videos up of that. The next big one is a day down at Cave Fest in a couple weeks. I may end up trying to do a local Halloween, festival around here, depending on what happens. But I got to be home some weekends too. So
Yeah, absolutely, brother.
yeah, so lots of fun.
Well, cool, man. Thanks for another great episode, folks. Until next week, enjoy the good, the crazy, and the Halloween, and
Halloween.
have fun decorating your yard like Nate and I will be doing this week as
Right.
well.
Yep. Yep.
Cheers,
All right.
brother.
Cheers.